Welcome to Pettyrevenge, where today's user drags a jerk all the way through the legal system. Our first story comes from a user named I See Where I Look. 2 years ago, I pulled into a parking lot with my family. It looked like there was only one space left, but a Mercedes had been parked horribly at the front, leaving almost zero room to maneuver. I spoke to the attendant, and she insisted it was the final spot available. The facility manages capacity automatically, so I carefully squeezed in, parking about an inch from the luxury car. I actually had to crawl out through the passenger door. When we returned to leave, the Mercedes was gone, and 2 of my tires were slashed. I flagged down the attendant to show her, and she summoned her manager, who promised someone would arrive within the hour. My wife and kids took a cab home while I waited. I was furious, so I called the cops and asked the manager for the security footage. They refused to hand it over without an official police report. So I filed one, and the manager directed me to their legal team. Minutes after finishing the paperwork, a mechanic arrived, fixed my tires, and I headed home. I had to pester the parking firm for nearly 3 months before they finally sent the footage to the police. The first time, they sent video from the wrong camera. The second time, the right camera but the wrong timestamp. Finally, on the 3rd try, they got it right. Once the police had the full clip, I updated my complaint to vandalism and identified the culprit directly via the camera and license plate. A few months back, I received a letter inviting me to arbitration. I responded with a refusal, stating this would be settled in court, and attached their arbitration offer to my evidence file. A week later, the guy's daddy's lawyer called, offering me a couple of $1,000s to drop it. He claimed the kid was just angry and made a mistake, telling me to be reasonable. I rejected everything and told him to stop contacting me. Fast forward, about 6 months post-incident, I got a court date set for 11 months later. Every few months, different lawyers would call with various settlement offers. I rejected them all and updated the case files each time. When the trial finally arrived, the guy was there with his dad and their attorney. They tried one last time to cut a deal, but I refused. The trial was short because the video was devastating to his defense. You could clearly see him walk up, stare at my car, make angry gestures, move his vehicle, get out, and slash my tires. He had no defense. The judge ruled in my favor guilty of common vandalism. He was sentenced to a fine equivalent to 790 days of house arrest. They appealed, but it was thrown out recently, and the verdict is now final. The payment deadline is set for October 10th, otherwise, house arrest converts to jail time. They called yesterday for my bank details and wired the money today. So, Monday, I'm reporting the payment received, ending this 2-year saga. So, Martin, enjoy being stuck at home. It's too bad your university doesn't accept house arrest as a valid excuse for missing classes, meaning you'll lose all your credits this semester. Maybe think about that before destroying someone else's property. This isn't just petty revenge, this is pure justice. Down in the comments, the OP clarified that the lawyers offered around $3,000 to drop the case, double what he got in court, but he declined because he wanted the guy to face consequences. Our next post is from Big Max. I was on an engineering contract for a while. These roles were usually open, ended with vague timeframes, like expected 12 months, but they were will, meaning they could end early or be extended. Usually, companies stick to the timeline and good workers get extensions. One day, our manager, a full-time employee, fired 3 people from our 10-person contractor team. I was technically leading the team, but as a contractor myself, I had no authority over firing. They were simply told, "Today is your last day at 4:00 p.m. Another contractor and I asked the manager, why didn't they get any notice? The manager smiled and said, "That's why we hire contractors, so we can cut them loose instantly whenever we please." We hated that answer. It was a strange thing to say to 2 other contractors, basically implying we could be fired instantly at any moment. Long story short, my colleague was a brilliant engineer. He immediately started interviewing and landed a new job. He told me, but nobody else. His new job started in a few weeks. He kept working the contract right in the middle of complex tasks only he understood. At 5:00 p.m. on his final day, he stood up, grabbed his equipment, walked to the manager's desk, and set it down. He smiled and said, "Hey, thanks for everything. Today is my last day." The manager stammered, "Wait, you're leaving?" He just said, "Yeah, thanks," and walked out. That was it. He sent a formal resignation email at that exact moment. It was hilarious. His project was half finished. He ignored all calls, and it took us a month to decipher his work. If the manager hadn't been so gleeful about firing people without notice, that guy would have definitely given a 2-week notice and a smooth handover. Down in the comments, we have a story from Long Schlong Silver. I work in construction, and I've seen coworkers fired with zero warning. My boss, the owner, claimed he wasn't required to give notice in our industry. I worked there for over a decade. When I decided it was time to move on, I finished my shift, found the boss, and told him I was done, effective immediately. He practically begged me to stay and train a replacement for the heavy machinery I operated. I told him he had 10 years to prepare a backup plan. Since I didn't work there anymore, it wasn't my problem. He asked why I gave no notice, and I repeated his own line about notice not being required in our industry. My favorite part was when he asked if I could come in for a few complex jobs that week. I told him absolutely not. This is why the 2-week notice standard is nonsense. Employers don't say, "Hey, I'm going to fire you in 2 weeks." No, they drag you to HR on a Friday and say, "You're done. Don't come back Monday." So why should we treat them any better? Our next post is from Doc Fallout. Several years ago, I was waiting at a supermarket hot counter to buy some potato wedges for my wife. The line wasn't long. I was 4th or 5th. A woman walked up with what looked like her granddaughter. This woman kept trying to cut the line every time a customer was served. The patient clerk kept telling her to wait her turn, which made the woman increasingly frustrated. As the guy in front of me ordered, I heard her whisper, "This is ridiculous. I just want some wedges." Being a fan of Pettyrevenge, I knew exactly what to do. Finally, it was my turn, and she tried to cut in again. I spoke up and told her the back of the line was behind me. She snapped! "This is BS! It's first come, first served." The clerk and I just stared at her until she retreated to the side, fuming. I looked at the display and saw there were very few wedges left. I told the clerk I needed more than what was there. He said he'd need to fry a new batch, which would take about 5 minutes. It actually took closer to 10. Knowing what the lady wanted was empty, I told him he could help her while we waited. This irritated her more, but she sighed, "Fine, might as well," and stepped up. Just as the fresh wedges were brought out, I saw her move to jump in front of me. I reminded her I was next. The clerk asked how many pounds I wanted, and I quietly said, "I want all the wedges." "All of them? Every single one?" He cracked a smile, said, "Sure thing," and boxed them all up. I started to walk away slowly to watch the fallout. She shrieked, "He did what?" and whipped her head toward me. I wish I could say I made eye contact and ate a wedge in her face, but I only thought of that later. Best a 15 I ever spent. OP, as a former grocery worker, you definitely made that clerk's day. Our next post is from Nude in the Garden. When my brother got married, his bride, now my sister-in-law, had very strict demands. She insisted the whole family wear her wedding colors, and we complied. Relatives flew in from across the country. We all tried to make her feel celebrated. The day before the ceremony, she made snarky comments about how our side of the family never takes anything seriously, implying we would ruin the vibe. Word got around and feelings were hurt, but we still showed up, looked sharp, and participated. Fast forward to the release of the wedding photos and video. Not a single photo of our side of the family was posted. Not one in the entire highlight reel. No faces from our family appeared, except a 3-second clip of my parents with the couple. It was like the rest of us didn't exist. I texted her politely, asking for photos of just the siblings. She replied that we never took those photos. That was a lie because I remembered organizing people for them. She doubled down on the gaslighting. I waited 6 months and asked again. She suddenly claimed she had no idea what I was talking about. Fine. Here is the revenge. I'm getting married in 8 days. I've been planning this since she tried to erase us. I hired a top-tier photographer and videographer. The videographer has a secret directive: make it look like she is the star. Follow her. Hover near her. Make her feel incredibly important. Then, the final edit. She won't appear for a single second, just like she did to us. I didn't even invite her originally, but she cornered me at a dinner and said she could make it despite work. I was stunned, but just said, fine. The rental house is booked regardless, so now she's coming. I misspelled her name on the invitation on purpose. That was step 1. The video blackout is the finale. Our next post is from Professional Pin. Last April, I needed surgery on my foot and ankle, so I was issued a temporary disability placard. I went to a Walmart to grab groceries mid-afternoon when it was usually quiet. However, a single car was blocking 3 handicap spots, parked horizontally across the lanes. It was a flashy Corvette with no license plates, no placard, and the passenger window was wide open, an invitation. I grabbed some dirt and gravel from a planter and sprinkled it all over the passenger seat for dramatic effect. Then, I went inside and told the service desk I saw a raccoon crawl into the Corvette hogging the handicap spots. They announced this over the PA system, asking the owner to come to the front. I stayed nearby to watch. A guy sprinted over, screaming about his car and insulting the employees for bad pest control. Shortly after, a large security guard arrived, followed by parking enforcement to handle the violation. The guy was banned from the store for his behavior. Meanwhile, I doubt there was ever a raccoon in his car. Down in the comments, known skin ads I used to drive a tow truck. I was always busy, but never too busy to tow handicap violators. Security had me on speed dial. I could get in and out in 20 seconds once the paperwork was signed. Sorry? Not sorry. These people deserve to be treated with the same disrespect they show others. I made a fortune doing that. Our next post is from Django. During the pandemic, I started brewing cider, beer, and mead for my friends. We lived in a country where alcohol was scarce, and due to lockdowns, we were cut off from suppliers for a year. So, I revived a hobby I hadn't touched in a decade to supply my community. It really annoyed this one guy that people were trading goods for my brews. It also drove him crazy that I knew how to malt grain and make beer from scratch. At every chance, he would insult my drinks. Sure, it was simple country brew, but it was clean, strong, and well made. We called it Wapaduil back home. His wife always backed him up. I found this odd because I was delivering truckloads to friends while nobody touched his wine at parties. Anyway, we were hosting a tasting night. In front of the entire room, he loudly insulted the glass I had just poured. I simply said, "You brewed that one. I didn't want you to feel left out." They stayed for maybe 5 minutes before shuffling out in shame. Down in the comments, someone asked how the other guests reacted. OP replied, "Well, it wasn't hard to get rid of my inventory after they tasted his batch. That was RR's Pettyrevenge. If you enjoyed this, check out my podcast where I upload these exact episodes. Don't forget to subscribe for new Reddit stories every single day."